So I gotta say, I absolutely loved this movie. It was the total opposite experience of seeing the original one back in 2000, a completely empty theater except for my D&D group. This
Uh-huh.
time it was my D&D group, but with a packed house, and you could feel that palpable joy coming through. So
That's great.
thank you for making this movie. We had a great time.
Great.
Our
Thank you.
pleasure.
I'm curious, now that the film has sort of been out in the world, what have you seen as sort of the larger response from folks in the D&D and tabletop role-playing community?
It's been shockingly positive. Like you said, people have really embraced it, both those who know the game and those who don't. And that's all we could have hoped for. John and I spent, a great deal of time and energy making sure that we were capturing not just the facts of the lore, but the spirit of the game. And that's what we wanted to get on screen. Wasn't so much about specific Easter eggs as it was about letting the fun and spontaneity of playing D&D come across.
And I think that really does shine through, especially with the sort of like easygoing charisma of the cast. And as well, like, you mentioned Easter eggs and things like that. I do want to touch on that later on, but I like how you sort of integrate them, just sprinkle them in and blow past them rather than focus on them with a big wink and a nod to the camera. Like, did you see this? Do you see what we just said?
Right.
But I am curious, with something like D&D, did you get any weirdly specific notes about like the lore of the world or mechanics or anything when you were approaching this project?
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We had a consultant at all times, and one of our producers, Ashley Alexander, who worked at E1 and was a huge lore expert, knew everything about the game that was to know. And she definitely kept things aligned with the accuracy of the game, specifically like, our spells and how they were cast. There's a verbal, somatic, or material component to each and every one of them that we were sure to depict accurately, or as accurately as we could. And the spells themselves, they were all, even as we were writing it, stripped from the books. So nothing is there that isn't in the source material.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. Something else I love is that, playing D&D, obviously you guys approach this with a fantastic script that lays that base there. And, when you're playing, you have to trust in your dungeon master to create the trappings of an adventure. But D&D for me at its core is always this really wonderful exercise in improvisational collaborative storytelling. So I'm curious, is there a moment of improv on set that really stuck with you or one that you thought helped elevate a scene in the final product?
Absolutely.
Zank walking over the rock, which was one of the bigger laughs.
That's the one that Reggae found on the day. We decided to let him continue to walk off into the horizon and just see what he would do. And he approached that rock, and it was his choice to jump over it, stiff as a board. And that was really funny, and something that we I wouldn't say battled with the studio on, but definitely there was a question of, are we going too silly with this moment, or can we just lean into it and embrace it for its absurdity?
As someone who's currently playing a paladin in my campaign, it felt very true to his archetype. So I thought it was wonderful. I've seen some, rumors and things online that Reggae's character was originally a bit different in nature, maybe a bit more famous of a D&D character from the lore. What was the process like going from a more established character to the one that we saw Reggae in the final product?
We always knew that we wanted a sort of a noble paladin in that role, or someone that would contrast with our main adventuring party, who were more misfits and more ill-equipped for all the challenges they faced. So that was always consistent. I mean, we talked about using some of the characters from the established lore, but ultimately we kind of wanted the freedom to invent it, and that's why we went that way. And we were really happy with Reggae's performance, because he got the joke, which is not to let on that you get the joke.
And anytime we're kind of making fun of a character or having our other characters make fun of that character, you run the risk of pissing off a very vocal fan base if that character is this beloved character stripped from the material. But we knew we wanted there to be this guy that feels like a complete outlier, whether he's a DM-derived NPC, or just the guy that shows up to the game and takes it incredibly seriously. You can kind of glean either scenario. but it's definitely fun to have someone that so utterly contrasts the personalities of everyone else in the group.
We did include, of course, the Easter egg of the 1980s cartoon.
That was delightful to see in the background as everyone's entering the tournament of death. That was just a very nice little background detail. Well, on that subject, I also love that you show love for things like Critical Role with a nice offhanded mention at one part with the freshly cut grass. Do you have a favorite Easter egg in this film, or is there maybe one that people haven't discovered yet that you're still waiting for?
I don't know it's so funny, like within seconds of the trailer being released, there are websites that immediately locked into the things that I thought would take a lot longer to lock into. So it's just a testament to how savvy these fans are. I think if you go through every shot that has Thoras in it, you can translate all of it and it all makes sense. So if you're reading, whether it's the flyer for Neverwinter, the High Sun Games, or the wanted poster with Edgin and Holga on it, they all make sense. They're all
even the table in that opening Absolution Council scene. It's a topographical sort of map of Faerun. It's really cool. You can barely see it, but there's an overhead shot where you can see that level of detail. That's why the home video is a great opportunity to freeze frame.
Exactly. I mean, that's something I was thinking in the theater. I'm excited to sort of go back and really hone in on all the little details and lore that's been pumped into this. Something I love about this is that level of verisimilitude that you folks brought to a fantasy world with all of these incredible practical effects and costumes and creatures. And I got to say, I think I speak for a large contingent of fans here when I say that I would die for Jarnathan, one of my favorite parts of the entire movie. I'm curious, though, what was your first reaction like when you saw Jarnathan in the proverbial flesh for the first time?
His neck was too long. That was our first reaction. They had built it so that the whole head of the stuntman in it was like in the neck. And it was just ridiculous.
Oh, no.
Well, that was for the stunty version of it. So there were multiple heads that were built for Jarnathan. One that could withstand the wear and tear of being on a harness flying through the air. And that one, it looked so ridiculous. It looked like a llama. Like it was another 4 feet above the top of the head of the guy playing him. And we were able to make some adjustments last minute. Jarnathan was also a favorite of ours, and the fact that we were able to put a character named Jarnathan that looked so absolutely ridiculous on the big screen, done practically, is a real feat.
We're very happy that people have embraced it. It's almost like it was tailor-made for the internet age somehow, because he's very dignified and British, and but he's used so inappropriately.
Just look, he's a solution to a problem, and that's D&D at its core, just breaking the world.
Here's a fun fact you'll appreciate as players. Originally, we were going to have that be an ooze or a half ooze, like a humanoid ooze who's on the council, and he comes in and he ties an arm of him to the table and jumps out like a
oh my god.
But the lore masters told us there is no such thing as a half ooze. There would never be an ooze who could be on the council, so that put the end to that.
We'll have to wait for the homebrew content to come out in between. Maybe they'll release a new book and you can put that in the sequel.
There you go.
That's awesome. If you were to come back to this world and spend more time in this world, would you want to continue with these specific characters or pick up with a different adventuring party?
I mean, I think what the great thing about sequels generally is that you don't have to spend the whole first act with exposition and introducing us to those characters. So we'd be able to kind of kick off the story right where we left off, or at least with the knowledge of who our characters are. That said, I think there's the potential to meet a bunch of new characters and monsters that we haven't had the opportunity to showcase in a sequel, Beholders being one of them. But in all honesty, we haven't spent much time thinking about a sequel because we really wanted this to be as good as we could possibly make it. I think one of the biggest mistakes that studios and filmmakers make is to create a cinematic universe before they've even made a single good first film. And so for us, it was paramount to get something that we were really proud of, that audiences and critics alike could latch onto. So that's a long-winded way of saying we don't know.
Well, it left me wanting more in a very positive way, so I'll be crossing my fingers to see continued adventures down the line. But gentlemen, congratulations. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.